Welcome to More Than Legal, the show where we go behind the scenes to uncover the fine print of power, purpose, and profit. I'm your host, attorney Danielle Laughlin. After almost 2 decades in the trenches of courtrooms and boardrooms, I have learned that every move leaves a mark and every deal tells a story. What will we uncover today? Let's find out. Hey, real quick, before we dive into the episode, remember, nothing you hear on this podcast is intended to be legal, financial, or tax advice. I invite you to contact any of the guests you hear by looking in the show notes for their contact information, or if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find my contact information at daniellelaughlin.com. All right, now let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to More Than Legal. I'm your host, Danielle Laughlin, and I am here with an awesome dude named Adam Swerdlow. He is a wealth of experience in not just finance, but also operations. And I thought he would be a great guest today to kind of share some of his experiences, which have spanned from media to other types of companies as a fractional COO. He also has experience in wealth management and really is just an incredibly gifted human at understanding business and what it takes to actually grow and sustain a brand. So that is the reason that Adam's here. And I know you, Adam, through our mutual network of the Principal Business Group. And we are capitalists doing capitalism for good together. And the audience here, as you may know, are entrepreneurs, investors, business leaders that are looking to see how people are doing business the right way. And so if you want to share just a little bit about yourself and kind of what brought you to where you are today to kick us off, and then we'll dive into some of the things that we want to talk about.
Adam Swerdlow, thank you for the intro. Originally from New York City, grew up in Connecticut, moved to California in 2016, and now I find myself in Utah, married to my beautiful wife, Shailene. I have 3 daughters, 5, 3, and 1.5. So, oh man, my days outside this office are quite hectic, but I wouldn't change a thing because I love seeing them grow and pouring into them every single day. So I'll keep it brief because I know there's a lot more to talk about besides, just about me and my personal life. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, we love it because nobody wakes up to go to work just to go to work, right? You go to work for your family. You go to work for the things that matter most to you. I think you leading with that family dynamic says a lot because one of the reasons I think you're just an incredible guy is because you have such a focus on family, faith, and really like bringing those into synergy with one another and really making your work part of your personal goals, I think, as a dad, as a father, and a husband. So right now you have what is a fractional COO business, right?
Yes, that's correct. So I work across a portfolio of companies in multiple verticals, offering my COO skills. And that's a wide gamut of things. It could be finance today. It could be go-to-market strategy tomorrow. It could be trademark and copyright protection the next day. I won't get too much into that because that's your world. But I know enough to be dangerous in that world. So
I know enough to be dangerous in operations, but please don't put me in charge.
I got you covered. Don't worry about that.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's what I think is great about you because you have such a kind of a wide variety of knowledge and experience, which is really important for small and scaling companies, right?
Yes.
They don't have huge budgets to go hire the 6-figure multiple people at the top. It takes a little bit of hope and prayer and a little bootstrapping to kind of get them to where they can start taking off. And in some of our conversations, which have not been many, but have been extremely impactful to me, what I've gleaned from you is that you really have a passion for helping other people succeed. Where do you think that comes from?
That's a great question. Maybe because of my upbringing, a lot of it, a lot of my success and a lot of it was always kind of figure it out for yourself. And I think that builds great, a great tough skin and great muscle, but it's also really great to have somebody help you along that pathway. And so it's probably, and if I'm going to psychoanalyze myself quickly, it's probably because my upbringing was figure it out, that when I see the opportunity to help somebody and accelerate their growth curve, then I jump into that opportunity because I just love helping people. And there are so many great visionaries with great ideas, but they just don't know how to put the pieces together. So am I capable of coming up with ideas? No doubt. But there are so many great ideas that just need an integrator like me to build it or to help build it.
I think learning whether you are more of an integrator or visionary as a business leader is so important. Do you actually run on EOS, or is it just kind of a framework you use for leadership?
It's my own work. The visionary integrator dynamic, at least those terms. So that's why I call myself an integrator, because that's really what I do.
Yeah, great. I actually took, there's that crystallizer test. I don't know if you've ever taken that or not. The EOS framework has one, and that's how I kind of came to the visionary integrator knowledge, or kind of understanding the distinction.
Yeah.
And I took that test and realized I was much more visionary than I actually thought I was. And it really helped me stop judging myself on some of those operational points that just aren't my strength, and I love that. Working with visionaries can be challenging.
It is, but I think it's at this point in my career, I don't mind it, because I can offer to help, and if they don't want it, great. That's okay with me. I've got plenty of work otherwise, and plenty of other visionaries to help. So if someone is not open to my, I always ask for permission, but constructive criticism to help them with their vision come to life, that's okay. They can continue on their own path. So I don't mean that in a bad way, but some visionaries don't want to be told what to do, what it's going to take to get their vision to life. So
I know that too, because even though I'm a visionary and an entrepreneur, I'm a lawyer, right? So I'm kind of like a rare species of visionary where I'm more risk averse probably than most visionaries. Sure. And then similar to what you do in operations, of course, legal is all about compliance and making sure that they're doing the things that need to get done in the right way for those legal and ethical reasons. And you're right. Some people don't want the help. I mean, even if they might acknowledge that they need it, they really are focused a lot on control. And how would you help somebody, let's say, that was thinking about whether they should consider bringing in somebody like yourself? What would be kind of some of the, I don't want to say red flags, maybe pink flags that might show up in their business that would suggest, and it may not be you, but that they might need some operational support?
I think it's if somebody is doing duties that are not their highest and best use, right? So a visionary is casting vision, breaking down barriers, kind of setting the framework of the organization. But if they're getting into setting up payroll, making sure QuickBooks is dialed in and everything ties to a zero, like that's not their highest and best use. They need to be out there, building the business on the front end. Well, I usually call myself the Wizard of Oz. Behind the curtain is kind of catching all the balls while they fall, making sure they don't hit the ground. So I'm all about people performing to what their highest and best use is. And at this point in my career, my highest and best use is not actually doing the work. I know how to do it, and I can speak to that, which I think is super valuable. But it's more advising on what work needs to get done in order for this visionary to see their success come to life, or their vision come to life.
Amazing. And a lot of that I've learned just through experience and then helping other companies in a fractional way, similar to what you do. A lot of that comes down to cash flow management more than much else.
Sure.
Do you see that? Like, is that kind of how you see things, where I feel like sometimes the visionary founders types, they get sucked back in when the cash gets tight, and then they butterfly around, and then something happens with the finances and they're sucked back down in. I see a lot of that. Do you see that type of thing going on?
I do and I don't. And typically when I come into a company and that's happening, I'll jettison them back out to the field to make sure that vision is being shared with the masses. Unless they are extremely dedicated to tying out the books on a monthly basis, visionaries should not be involved in that aspect of the business beyond knowing what the numbers are, right? I mean, I think it's really important for you to know what the numbers are, but they shouldn't be day to day worried about the cash, because that will distract them from what their actual highest and best use is.
Yeah, I love it. I think too, that journey of learning what your lane is probably the greatest challenge for a visionary type, because a lot of times they're good at a lot of different things. It's why they can create a successful business, because they can figure things out. Like you said before, they're troubleshooters, right? And they're curious usually. And so I remember building my first website, and I remember, and I still get sucked into a lot of those things too, because we're still kind of a smaller company growing on our own journey. Let's talk a little bit about some of your success stories, because I don't want to go this whole slot here and not get into some really incredible work that you've already been a part of. I think the one thing that most people are going to know, more people probably would know about, is The Chosen, which was a very successful series just a few years back. And you were part of that. And what I understand, you were really part of how it became such a big kind of operational and exponential success. Can you share a little bit about your time at The Chosen, and maybe how you got into it, and then ultimately how you helped them succeed?
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't want to take any credit for what shows up on screen, because I had nothing to do with the script writing or the directing. But I made sure that everything stayed kind of in its lane behind the scenes. Again, Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, making sure that the visionaries of that organization could perform their highest and best use, which was making the show, and not worrying about everything that goes on behind the scenes. So how I got into, it was right place, right time. I believe that luck is opportunity meets preparation. So in this instance, I got lucky because I had an opportunity and I was prepared just based off of where I had been prior. From 2011 to 2019, I was a financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. I built an insurance practice and a wealth management practice. I left in 2019 and started a consulting practice, consulting financial advisors with a good buddy of mine who we're working together again on a new startup. We can talk about that later. We found that financial advisors are great at gathering assets. They're not great at running their business. They're not great about thinking outside the box in terms of, how do I market my practice differently? Hey, what other products are out there that my clients would like to see that I may not necessarily know because they're not advertised to me. And so in my business development strategy for that business was literally putting my face on a Loom video, if you're familiar with Loom, on your LinkedIn profile, and then saying, hey, I see you were here, and here's where I can help you. If you're interested, my calendar link is below here, in this video, and click it and we'll set up a time. I ended up landing a client here in Utah, where I live now. I wasn't living here at the time. He referred me to his boss. So referrals are a part of this too. And then his boss's dad, his boss became a client. And this client's dad was looking for somebody to help raise capital for season 2 of The Chosen, because they were unsure how they were going to fund it. And initially my responsibility was to build a capital raise. I quickly sunk my teeth in, and it's in the middle of COVID, building this capital raise. For those who don't know, a lot of it you have to deal with state agencies and getting basically allowed to sell securities in their particular states, which was extremely difficult during COVID because all these agencies were closed. But because of my figure it out mentality and background, I figured it out and built the capital raise. It was through that process that I found that there was really nobody, as I'd mentioned before, catching all the balls that were falling towards the ground. The show is getting made, but if we had any intention of this show having any longevity, and any way of keeping the train on the tracks, you needed somebody behind the scenes to build the organization while the show was being made. And so I just stepped into that role and started to do all those things. So whether it was reviewing all the contracts and make sure that the right IP ownership was in the contract, making sure that our IP was protected, making sure that we had, it sounds very rudimentary, but payroll ready to go and be able to pay all our employees on time, whether we had the right insurances, right? As we grow, as we expose ourselves in the market, right? How do we protect ourselves as well? How is the corporate structure set up? I mean, the list goes on. I could go on forever and ever and ever about the things that I did for that organization, but it just was innate in me to just go and seek out all of these areas that needed to be set up in order for that company to have longevity and success at that. And it was because when I was a financial advisor, I worked mostly with business owners who had not only a personal need, but a business need, is how I kind of had the skill set to understand how all of those things work and fit together.
Yeah, great. I mean, you mentioned so many things there, obviously, that they touch operations, they touch legal. There's a lot of overlap with what you do. And for me, I'll say, one of the things that we look for in our clients is whether they have any operational support, because if we're working with a visionary that does not have somebody that's actually going to execute on the things that need to get done to keep things compliant and moving in the right direction, we don't need to engage. They're going to spend a bunch of money with us. We can get all the documents. We can get the brand. We can do all of those things well as lawyers, but if they don't have someone inside who actually values that stuff and understands how important maintaining those systems and processes and compliance frameworks are, it's like they're never going to think back to us as part of a success story. They're only going to think of us as a cost center. Right. And that has been a big challenge for us, because a lot of visionaries don't like to have strong operators because they don't want to be told no, or that, and so, we know the statistics, right? I mean, what is it like? 1 in 10 businesses makes it to 10 years, 4 in 10 gets to $1 million or more. I mean, it's pretty staggering. And so I think that it's great to hear from you, especially because you came from the financial side. That to me is really what drives, everything else in terms of whether a business can actually succeed at what they're doing. Because if they don't have a growth engine and then a profit discipline and everything else that comes in, with the cash flow management, great ideas, they die thousands of times a day. So it sounds like The Chosen had a little bit of success before you came in. They had already, so it seems like what you're saying, and what I understood from our last conversation, which was just yesterday, ironically, is that you're looking for a certain level of success, or at least traction, before you kind of come in to help us understand, like, what do you look for?
There has to be some cash there. So, typically if you have product market fit, you've got some revenue, maybe you do need some capital, but you've had success in the market already where you can prove it to investors and they're willing to invest in your organization. Then it makes sense to do a lot of the organizational stuff that's really my specialty. Startups, there are certain things you can, relate to this as an attorney, but there are certain things that are important, but you just don't need to do right away. For instance, like a buy-sell agreement, right? I think those are super important, but I don't know that you need one until you're extremely successful. And if you're successful overnight, and hats off to you. And if you never do a buy-sell because you were so successful so quickly, there are worse things out there. But I work best in companies that have either have product market fit and started to make some revenue, and are either raised money before in a pre-seed or a seed, and then they're on their way to an A, right? Because investors are going to want to see that there is discipline and somebody who knows what they're doing behind the scenes. There's tons of visionaries out there, but I think follow through is a lost art. And I'm glad it's a lost art because I strive or I thrive on follow through. Getting stuff done is kind of what I do. So any organization can't survive without somebody who has extreme follow through. And like I said, there's tons of visionaries who are out there just vision casting but don't follow through. And so those businesses have a tougher time succeeding.
I agree. And I think too, do you do the Kolbe A assessments?
I have done that. I don't know my numbers off the top of my head. I can pull it up, but I don't know them off the top.
I'll self-report here that I'm a high fact finder. That's why I'm a lawyer. I need a lot of information. I'm a high quick start. I get information fast and I act on it. I'm very good at decision making. My follow through, if I don't have other people picking up those pieces from me, that's why I had to build a legal team in a certain way. I have to be the strategist, but the little details of getting documents organized and keeping up with the changing entity structures when we do this and putting it onto the graph and things like that. I had to learn that even though I was very competent at the legal part of it, I get very bored with things that feel to me monotonous. And so those details to me are like, yeah, those are important, great, but like really it's the strategy, Sure. So I think, it takes a lot for visionaries to grow in that way, especially if they are good at making those decisions, because people value the confidence and the decision and the boldness. And that's why they'll get the pre-seed, they'll get the seed funding. People are like, wow, you got a great idea and everything. But there's a plan and a roadmap. And I'll say for my part, it's been 10 years in business now. I'm glad we've made it that far. But if I compare myself to other people out there doing it faster than me, it's easy to look at yourself and say, well, I must be missing something here, right?
Not necessarily.
Well, but I think that there's like some learning there that is required. And I also think you mentioned you're a doer. There's a ton of integrators out there that haven't found their counterpart visionary too. They're in organizations. They're brilliant. They have a real need to cross the T's and dot the I's and move that process forward and complete it. But they don't really have a strong visionary that will allow them to shine. They can kind of get snuffed down. Yeah. It seems like humility might be a good component of somebody that could work well with a person like yourself. What do you think about kind of their mindset, I guess, of who they are when you're looking to maybe work with someone?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. I'm 41 now, despite my baby face, and I've gotten really good at like you fact finding before I take an engagement on, and part of it is having autonomy. I need a certain level of autonomy to do my work. I can't wait for approval for absolutely everything, or we're just stall and die. So what's really important to me is that I have that level of autonomy and I have that level of kind of the feedback loop where it's real time and I'm not attacking you. I'm just being constructive and proactively constructive so that we can get ahead of conflict. I don't mind conflict either. I think that growth happens on the other side of conflict, and we're human beings. It's inevitable that there is going to be conflict. It's just how you resolve it is what matters most. And then you talked about the Kolbe test. I have found that unless you have worked a traditional corporate job before, you haven't done any types of these personality tests. Yeah. So like whether it be StrengthsFinder or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram, like I think those are really important to do, not only for others to learn how you work, you can work together, but also for your own self, right? You learn that your follow through wasn't great. That's not wrong. It's just, it is. That's you as a unique individual. So then by taking that test, now you found that you need somebody who's the integrator. You need somebody who has to follow through so that you can shine doing what you do best. And it's funny, there's something that me and my wife went through recently. It's called Couples Life Plan. And through that, they had us take Enneagram and StrengthsFinder. Now, I had done those before, and I took them again because we see, how it changes. But my wife had never done that. And she took those tests, and I learned a ton about her just by taking those tests that she had never done before, because she never had a traditional corporate job that, I guess, forced you to take those tests.
Right.
So I think it was hugely impactful. So for all those married folks out there, like, have your, go and have your spouse take a Enneagram with you. You'll learn a ton about how they operate. And I think there'll be a good learning exercise on the back end of that, on how you deal with conflict, how you resolve conflict, how you work best with each other, how you grow your marriage stronger. So just a side note, bit of encouragement.
I'm over here. I was looking like, do I have a pen? And I don't. That's one thing I need to get on my little pod studio here. But so Couples Life Plan, and I think that's awesome because we do it in our firm. Because I took some coaching programs. Once I realized that, like, I had a lot of great ideas, but I didn't know how to get them going. I just invested a ton of money to figure out, like, what do I need to know? And one of the things that I found the most valuable, there were two things really. It was around kind of setting the core values and the mission and the purpose of the organization and making that clear to other people and not just in your brain, right? In your heart. It's like, you got to get it out. That was the first thing. But the other thing was those assessments. And we do a number of different ones. Working Genius is one that Patrick Lencioni does. And so we do that one, which is a great one. And my husband, he was in a corporate job, but it became corporate. It was really a tech startup that just blew up to a multi-billion-dollar company. Sure. It wasn't like a, old school kind of corporate structure. And I don't think they do any of that. And we've talked about it before. And I'm now realizing it will be much better for me to suggest this as a couple's life plan than to try to like psychoanalyze him during our most vulnerable moments.
Yeah. If you need a mediator, you need a third party, impartial third party to help with that for sure. Yeah.
That's great though. And it keeps the spark alive, right? You learn about each other. Like you said, you learn something about your wife that you didn't know, and parts of herself that maybe she knew, but didn't never see in words. I think it is so critical to be self-aware. Strengths and weaknesses, we all have them,
Yeah. She's a 9 on the Enneagram scale, which is ultimately a peacemaker. And I'm not a peacemaker, but I also.
Are you an 8?
No, I'm a 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like to hit conflict head on, and that doesn't really work well for her. So we now have a system in place for when we have a disagreement on how to, play to each other's strengths to make sure we have the best possible outcome. As one example, there's obviously many other amazing things that came out of that process, but that just.
Yeah. And your relationship at home with your spouse, your significant other, whatever that might look like for folks out there that maybe aren't married, is similar to with the relationship you have with your leadership team and the people in your company that, you're relying on. It's a partnership, right? It's like I told my husband about a week or so, maybe now about 2 weeks. I said, I feel like I'm extracting a lot from the family currently and not really giving a lot because he's been working from home. And I'm over here. We come into the office a few days a week. I'm kind of running my little scrappy startup. And he was like, well, it's okay. But it was like, I could tell that he had also felt that way. And it was important that I said it out loud and like acknowledged that. And then I still felt sensitive about the fact that that was the truth because that's not who I want to be to my family. And I think that that's part of having good teamwork as well. I think Brene Brown talks about the rumbling, right? You got to kind of be able to kind of rumble through big, hairy problems that come up in an organization. I want to talk about your startup. Next, I'd love for you to tell the audience about that. We've had a number of wealth advisors and planners and all kinds of different folks on this show in the financial services industry. And it's very similar to legal. Like, it is so similar. It's kind of scary sometimes because I'm like, am I talking to a lawyer? But I think the industries are built around risk and compliance, of course, because we're dealing with money.
Yeah.
And so it tends to attract folks that are more risk averse and compliant, I would say, just in terms of kind of how they show up in their work. Talk about this startup, and you've had really great success. I just saw that post on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We probably have people that might be interested to hear about this.
I'm assuming you're talking about a company called Wealth Reach, right? Yes, that was the LinkedIn post?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So going back to my Northwestern Mutual days, this is relevant to the question. I was a college unit director, which is the first step in management in the organization, where there are summer interns that come in and become, mini insurance salespeople. And a college unit director is supposed to herd the cats, right? Supposed to herd all those interns. And so before they actually give you interns, they send you off to Milwaukee, which is where corporate headquarters is, to learn best practices, to meet other college unit directors throughout the United States, to so that you have this cohort when you go back to your offices that you can meet with on a monthly basis and talk about everybody's experience. And I met a guy named David DeSalle, and he was from Massachusetts. I went to school in Massachusetts, and I'm a huge Yankees fan. I got terrorized by Red Sox fans, so I immediately gravitated towards him and just chastising him for the fact that he was a Red Sox fan, or at least from that neck of the woods. And we built a great, I'll call it, brotherhood from that day forward. He really helped me to leave Northwestern. It was tough for me to let go of the sunk cost fallacy that I had put so much time and effort into building a business that I couldn't possibly do anything else. And so he and I actually started the business that ultimately led me to The Chosen, because we started this consulting business for financial advisors, and he and I were partners in that business. Then when I went to The Chosen, I was dedicated to that, and he continued to build in that area. And then he built this company called Wealth Reach. What Wealth Reach is it's a way for financial advisors to market themselves better, understand buyer intent, understand who's looking at their website. As I mentioned earlier, wealth advisors or financial advisors are really good at gathering assets. They're not good at marketing. They're not good at running their business. So this is kind of an outsourced help with marketing, getting in front of people, making sure your website's found. Right. A lot of these websites are not crawled by SEO at all. That's really important. There's also no Yelp for financial advisors. This also adds that aspect to it. So it's a really, really unique tool that's now available to financial advisors. And we have aspirations of growing into other verticals as well. And so I don't know, about a month ago, he calls me. He's like, dude, I need you. I need you badly. And I'm like, what do you need? I'll take my shirt off my back for you, dude. So he said, hey, we're exploding. We're raising capital. I need you. I need all of the things that you did for The Chosen for me. And I said, great. I'm so thrilled to do that. So I started with them, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, because that was 30 days ago. We had that conversation, and it's just been laying the tracks ahead of the train, ahead of like the freight train that's coming down the hill, to make sure that we can maintain that growth. And like I said, the basics, paying people, right? Onboarding employees, making sure they feel welcome. Like, these are things that are just second nature to me, that may seem foreign to organizations, but it means a lot for the long term. I'll give you an example. We're hiring a customer success manager, and we just hired a head of sales. And the customer success manager doesn't start for another 30 days. But I asked her permission to introduce her to the head of sales ahead of time, so they can take this next 30 days to build a relationship, because ultimately the sales that he makes are going to be maintained successfully by this individual. I want them to have the ability to build a great working relationship, so that when she does start on her first day, it's already all built, right? Yeah. Most people I know would wait until that person started to do that, right? But now we're 30 days ahead of the curve. our clients can receive best-in-class service and make sure that their business is still successful despite the fact that they're new to our organization. So just a little bit about
yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm like, I'm over here. I'm trying not to twitch on camera as to like how much of this we also struggle with, because even when you try to put those training protocols into place, like you said, it's like you got to herd all those cats to get it to even operate. That's a whole operational process. And so then somebody's got to manage that and make sure that those pieces keep moving forward. Relationship building, I've heard a lot here. I think you have a real gift for that. You seem to understand people, and I think that's really important, because when you're bringing groups together, you're always going to have the tension and the confrontation. I don't shy away from it either. My husband's more of the peacemaker. I will trying to be a recovering litigator. I wish I could actually say that fully, but I'm still embroiled in a few litigations. But it's like, not everybody's going to just get along on day one and know exactly how to work with each other. So I think that's extraordinary. It also says a lot about you that you had this person who you worked with previously, who you kind of helped them a little bit, and they helped you a little bit. You kind of parted ways, and now you're finding a new way to kind of come back together and keep going. And I think that's great. And really, I think the value that you brought to the group today is extraordinary, because you have you're a very giving spirit. So you're not like trying to hide the ball or act like, all these great tools that you have or your proprietary frameworks or whatever. And so I appreciate that. And I think that the audience must also as well, because you're just the type of person we like to have on this show that's just sharing. And in the same vein, we want to make sure that you are able to connect with people that want to connect with you. So we're going to provide your bio, all of the links for how to get in touch with you. But I'd like to ask two things. One nugget that you just want to share with folks on the journey, primarily the visionaries, but also how do you want folks to get in touch with you?
So I've done this before on other podcasts, and people are amazed and shocked that I do this, but I give up my cell phone number. It's been the same since I was 16 years old. Just don't spam me, please. Please don't spam me. It's 203-233-2423, 203-233-2423. A lot of twos, a lot of threes, 1410. And call me, text me. If I don't answer, it's because I can't. I'm pretty good at text though. So if you need something, just give me a holler. Always happy to help. Side note, I volunteer at an incubator here in Utah. I just love helping new entrepreneurs. It's in a small little capacity. It's nothing major. But just if you need help, if you've got questions based off of anything you heard today, I'm happy to talk about that. And the second thing, what was the first thing? I answered the second thing first.
Yeah, that's okay. A nugget, like what would be a piece of advice that you would leave our audience with?
Particularly for visionaries or just for anybody?
Really for anybody in business. Probably more visionaries are really who we're talking to, but whatever you think will help people along their journey.
I think so much onus is placed on IQ these days. And don't get me wrong, IQ is very important, but I think, and I said it before, I said it in advance, but EQ is also very important, which is emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. You're a startup, and then founders and visionaries, you're working with people and at a very vulnerable time. So to the extent that you can understand how they operate as a human being and what their personal needs are, I think you'd be that much better off. I've been at too many organizations that just looked at employees as a cog in the wheel instead of an actual living, breathing human being, with families, with feelings, with needs beyond a paycheck. I think the quicker that you can understand how somebody ticks, and whether it's through a personality test or just spending quality one-on-one time with somebody outside the work environment, I think the better off you'll be. So emotional intelligence is just as important, if not more important, than intellect, because there's a lot of things that you can teach and or be taught. It's really hard to understand somebody emotionally.
I couldn't have said it better than that. And I think it is so important. People are what drive organizations. I mean, it's people.
Yeah.
AI might be coming for our jobs, but at the end of the day, there is something special and unique about humanity that cannot be replaced.
You
So,
got it. You got it.
well, this is great. I'm excited. We look forward to continuing our relationship with you, Adam, here at Sage. But
Likewise.
also, I hope that you find some great opportunities with our audience. And we're going to see you at our summit. I got to get better at promoting our summit that's coming up in September. So you'll be speaking there, which is exciting, sharing more of these insights. And so I want to thank you for being willing to share here today. And I look forward to having that in-person conversation as well. I don't know that I'll get to Utah before then, but if you get to Atlanta, let me know. I think you come here maybe more than I get out west, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think I'll be there in the next few months for sure.
Okay, great. Well, please let us know. We'd love to see you in person. And thanks again for coming. Everybody, please reach out to Adam. He was so kind to give you his cell phone number. If you spam him, I will be coming after you. Okay. And
he's a lawyer. Yeah.
So no one will spam you, Adam, I promise. And thanks again for watching the show. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the show. Remember, stay sharp, stay curious, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye for now.